Hey, it's your boy Protagonist JWA with Gardening with JWA, and we are replacing this all-in-one almond tree with this Yorizane almond. So the reason we're doing this is because this all-in-one almond has like no production, and as you can see, it's a really established tree. So we're going to replace it with something that is a little bit newer, so you might not see it in online nurseries. I was lucky to be able to get a couple, and this is the second one we're putting in the ground. And as you can see, this tree right here already has way more production than this 4-year-old all-in-one almond. So it's definitely going to be a superstar. So step one is I'm going to top work the tree. And essentially what I'm doing here is I'm just making it easier to actually get closer to the trunk to top work. Okay, so I've obviously top worked the tree. And just to make it easier to obviously get close, and then as you can see, I'm pulling back the soil, and then I brought out my axe because I'm going to need to use that to chop up these thick roots. Hey guys, so this is one of the roots I was talking about. There are a lot of these that kind of just anchor into the ground, and these things are freaking thick AF, and you have to use an axe to chop them up, because otherwise you're going to break your shovel, and I learned that the hard way, unfortunately. Okay, so now you can kind of take a look at the hole right there, and then I am going to go towards the house so you can kind of see. So I mentioned this in a previous video, but like, you get this really hard, super dry dirt, right? And then by just adding like mulch and organic matter and just constant chop and drop, you're able to get something that's super interesting that I'll showcase in a second. Boom. So you can see this. Sorry if you hear my breathing, but you can see in this hole, I mean, a couple flies came in there, but you see how you can't even tell? You can see it a little bit if you look close enough that there is some level of like clay material, but I only put like maybe, I don't know, 6 inches of mulch. But do you see how far down that stuff worked? Do you see how, like, if I go to these mulch piles, how all the dirt is like super moist? You can't see that. Like just super moist, super good to go. A lot of debris and obviously thick ass roots. And that's all due towards just adding organic matter at the top level. Obviously the pot itself, when you plant it, will have some level of organic matter, but really just adding a lot of mulch, trapping in that moisture, and then frequent watering does wonders to transform your soil, especially if you have clay. All right, so now what you can see in the bottom of that hole is a few things. One is vermiculite, which is the goldy flake looking thing, and the other is pumice. So as you can see, the soil already has a lot of organic matter. So our focus is kind of towards drainage and aeration. All right, so one thing I didn't want to forget is a lot of people make this mistake. So if you look here, a lot of people get a pot like this and they say, oh, cool, I'm just gonna put this tree in the ground. You know, this is ground level, I'm good to go. What they fail to realize is a couple things. Sorry, I got dust from all the digging. First and foremost, when you get a pot, you want to be able to see the root flare. And what that means is you want to be able to see the top level of roots. And a lot of nurseries, when they repot stuff, they'll put anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of soil at the top. And then people will plant this at ground level. And what will happen is, naturally when you plant at ground level after fluffing up the soil, stuff will sink a little bit. So when it sinks a couple, like 2-3 inches, depending on the size of the pot, and it's already under anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of just soil from the nursery and properly uppotting it, you now have a tree that's like, its graft layers, so usually sometimes they graft them up high, so it's not a problem with where its graft point, but sometimes they're low. So you have a graft layer that's below the grade, so it can get rotted out by just general watering, especially when it gets really wet, and then it can't breathe as well. So you end up getting a tree that struggles a lot. So I've made this mistake before, and it's, unfortunately, it can cost a lot in the way of time, because the way you fix this mistake is you have to essentially redig up your tree. One tree was really bad. I had to redig it up, and it wasn't because it's because I planted it way too deep. So what I do a lot of times in these type of pots is, this is essentially just like, you know, I consider this just mulch. I always scrub away the top layer. Now keep in mind, you are going to have an issue because sometimes when they use slow release fertilizers, it tends to a lot of times be in that top layer. So just be aware of that when you're taking it out. But you can see right here how you start to see, let me see if I can see on the camera. You can see how you start to see like a root right there. That means this is its root flare, which means whoever did this, which it was Reed from RSI Growers, he actually did a proper job because he barely covered this, which is awesome. You don't want this to be super covered. So I like to be on the safe side, is I always mound up because we have clay soil, so I want more breathability. It's also the reason why I put all that pumice and vermiculite in the hole. But now I know, okay, this is the reasonable ground levels right here. So this is what I'm gonna measure off of. I'm gonna plant a couple inches above grade, maybe 10 or 15%. So when it does compress and sink a little bit, I'm gonna be either at or ideally slightly above grade, which is where I'm going for. Okay, so I popped it in the hole. As you can see, there's all that pumice and vermiculite. Now, keep in mind, this is pretty much where the root ball is. This is essentially just slightly, but a little at grade, right? It was a little bit lower. I lifted it up. Now, keep in mind, I have anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of mulch. So if you take that into account, I am high, right? So it'll sink a little bit to where the actual tap roots, or not tap roots, I'm sorry, the root flare will be slightly below mulch grade, but I'm not putting a shit ton of mulch right up against the bark, right? So that's not going to cause an issue if this part of the root is slightly below. And when I say grade, in this circumstance, I'm referring to, I got a turly horse. In this circumstance, I'm referring to the top of the soil level where all the mulch is. Okay, guys, this beautiful material you see around that's red. So this is lava sand, which very fine. This is the fine version, which I love. So what I did is I backfilled some of the dirt that I took out of this hole, right? Now keep in mind, when I had this in the beginning, what I had, I maybe point the camera right. What I had was, at the bottom of the hole, I put vermiculite, pumice, right? That was my foundation. Plop this and put it in like a couple scoops of the soil. Plop this thing on top. Then I did a couple more scoops of the soil, and then I poured a bunch of lava sand around. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm essentially gonna take a little stick, and I'm gonna get a bigger one, but I'm gonna poke in like this to make sure I'm taking out any air pockets that are along the sides. And then I'm gonna layer the rest of this organic material right here on the top. And then I'm gonna probably put a little special sauce. All right, so you're probably wondering what the special sauce is. Well, the fun fact is the special sauce is essentially whatever you want it to be. In this case, this is 32 trees in the ground plus, all varying sizes, all planted in different ways. And what I found is, as long as you plant it, make sure it's above grade properly, it can breathe, you put some type of organic matter on top, and then you add a layer of mulch and you water it as needed. So in this case, this guy right here, he's gonna get extra water because I'm planting him in a horrible situation. So in the summer, whereas all my other trees kind of get watered once, I'm gonna water him extra just to keep him going because his roots aren't as established as the other trees were. So he's not gonna be able to get that moisture. In this case, what I got going here are just alfalfa pellets. It's what I happen to have on hand. I don't have any compost. I could break out the liquid feeds like the fish and kelp emulsion and all that shenanigans. But one thing I find is, because I have so much biological activity in my soil, I'm not really worried about this not breaking down fast. In fact, I think this will break down a lot faster than you think. So I don't feel the need to add like a liquid feed that's like fish emulsion that's gonna give it nitrogen right away, because I think by the time it starts figuring itself out, this will probably start breaking down and feeding it. So I'm not too worried. Okay guys, so we are done. We're I mean, the video may say like 10 minutes in, but yeah, we're done. We did this. It's May.
Oh, hold
super hot.
Sorry, there's a motorcycle, guys.
Yeah, no worries. So it's May, it's super hot. We planted this tree at the worst possible time. You should not be planting a deciduous tree. Best time to plant a deciduous tree is honestly right before it goes dormant, so its roots can kind of start establishing over the winter. Essentially, the further away you can plant it from a hot summer, the better the tree's gonna do, especially in Arizona. So what you can kind of see here is what we did is we said, okay, base part of the hole was just vermiculite and pumice. Put the tree in above grade, and then because obviously it doesn't look like it's above grade, but keep in mind I just applied an additional couple inches of mulch, and it's already like at level with the mulch that's already there. I mean, I know you see the grass, but effectively that grass is just growing through mulch. If I were to like dig in, you would see it's just like compost, wood chips, you know, matter. It's all mulch, organic matter anyway. So we took the leaves and the soft new growth of the old tree and we put it as the base, and then I took some organic mulch I got from like Home Depot or Lowe's, I forget which one, that can be used for, you know, edible gardening, and I just plopped it on top. And then what I'm doing now is I have the hose, which is that little pink wand you see, on a very small trickle, and I am now going to deep soak this tree, and I'm going to put a timer on my phone for 1 hour. That's essentially what I'm going to do. Now, based on how he's doing, or I guess she's doing, throughout the summer, I might give this girl some extra attention and give her some extra water. But for the most part, that's how I kind of plant my tree. You know, I mixed in some lava sand along with the backfill to fill it back up, because the soil did have a lot of organic matter in it because of all the amendments working their way down. So all in all, not too shabby, and I think you guys will be surprised to see the results of this tree in the future. I think it's probably about finger thick, pinky finger thick, as far as like trunks go. Oh, if I go close, it's about a finger, no, maybe like a pinky finger thick. So we'll see how much it grows this growing season before it goes dormant. So yeah, this is the Yorizane Almond. It's a new variety, so you won't find it on online nurseries, at least not most of them anyway. I think a lot of the commercial growers are kind of taking over because they're just so amazing. So yeah, this is your boy Protagonist JWA, and Antagonist Kim's kind of moving the camera for me, and this is Gardening with JWA, and this is how I plant my trees.